So as like Rohit mentioned, like it's the community page link is there, so you can join under WhatsApp group too. So we'll start with our topic. Like as you know, like we have a proper series of SAP automation. In this, we'll cover all areas of SAP. So in this series, first topic is SAP GUI automation. So firstly, let's just go to the introduction. Monica.
Hello everyone, thank you so much. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I am Monica and I'm an RPA developer at the Silicon Partners. You can connect with me on LinkedIn using the link that is shown on the screen, and I'll also share my LinkedIn profile at the end of the session in the chat.
Thanks, Monica. So, hi everyone, I'm Deepak. I'm also an RP developer at the Silicon Partners. And if you have anything, any questions regarding SAP or even UiPath, if you want to connect on that and discuss things on that, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll share the link in the chat as well. So, moving forward, our first thing that we'll see like is our agenda. So, what are we going to cover today? So firstly, like what is like how we can start with SAP automation? What are the prerequisite and what are the things that we have to set before starting the automation, setting up in the SAP environment or even in the UI path? Those things will cover in the getting starting part. And then the UI part too, like there are some dedicated activities that UiPath has provided that we can use in SAP automation. So we'll discuss that in detail. We'll also see like where we can use them and how we can use them and what benefit do they provide us. So we'll see that. Then we'll see the best practices too. Like every automation we do, we want to make it as with the best practices because we want to reduce the chance of the board failure as well. So we will see like few of the points that we have observed in our projects, like how can we improve that and what are the best practices to work on. Then we will have a live demo session. I have a process prepared and we will also do some part of that in our live session. Like we'll create a bit of the part of that demo. Then we will have a Q&A session. We'll discuss all of your questions, like if you have any queries and anything. And if you have any queries in between, do like put that in the chat. We'll also like to hear from you, like what are the questions in between, and we'll like to answer. We'll try to answer them in between. So before we start, just wanted to like see like how many of you are aware of SAP? Like if you can just raise hand or send message in chat, yes, no, just to get an idea, like how much are you aware of SAP and have you done automation, SAP automation? Great. I see so many people saying yes. There are some no too, but no worries. We'll try to start it from a way like even if you are doing it the first time, it will be beneficial for you. Thanks everyone. So the first slide. Firstly, like what is SAP? Like we are starting a series on SAP and we are doing SAP automation. It's a big part of industry. So what is SAP actually? So like let's just say let's just have an example. Like we have a industry and let's just say that in that we have a company and in that company there are different environments, different areas that a company run through. Like let's just say there is a production team and then there is a planning team, there is an inventory team, sales team, human resource team. There are lots of areas of a company, but how like a single person can't manage it easily because we have to keep track of all the areas. We have to see like what are the profit, what are the inventory material, if there is any issues happening and there is a bottleneck, how can we identify that? If the organization size is small, we can easily identify that through documents, but as the organizations grow, they tend to have like lots of paperwork, and how can we help streamlining that? So SAP comes in between that. It is an ERP software that integrates with your business process. Like let's just say that it integrates with all of your areas. It will integrate with you can see in the diagram there are different areas, so it will integrate with all of these and it will provide you the details that you require to like streamline your company's processes. And if you are wanted to make any decision, how can you make them with that are backed with complete data. So there are areas like if I want to make some changes in a production because there are some things happening, so how can I make that? I have complete data from SAP. I'll take the report out from that and then I'll make decision. I'll discuss like how we can improve that. So SAP plays a big role in managing all those area and help organizations grow. So this is the basic definition of SAP. We'll move forward. So there are different environments of SAP. So there are basic four I will talk about today. Like first is SAP Win GUI, then SAP Web GUI, then there is Fury, and then is Web GUI Fury. So some are the desktop version, some are browser version. We'll see that some are the old ones, and some of they are modern design experience. So in classic design experience, there are SAP Win GUI. You'll see the in SAP GUI, it is an application that you directly installed on your machine, like on your Windows OS on your machine, and you can directly interact with that and work on that. But SAP Web GUI is also like a GUI, but it is on a browser. You can install it on your, you can use it on your browser, so you don't have to install any external applications on your system. So it removes the dependency. Like if in WinGUI there was a dependency that we have to install a software, but now there is no dependency of that. We can just do it directly on the browser. So these are the old user interfaces, but now SAP has introduced other interfaces as well. Now SAP Fury is there. It's a web-based. You can just go to any browser and go to the link and use that. And also, like in that, the experience is more enhanced. Like let's just say that in SAP GUI we used to have T codes. In that we have to remember like which T code is related to which process. But now in SAP Fury we have different applications. Like let's just say that have to go to general entries. So I'll just type the general entry name and the application will appear. It will name as general entry. It will be not based on T code, but it will be a name of that application. So it enhance our user experience as well, and enhance the overall usability of that particular application. Then there is SAP Web GUI in Fury. It provides an integration between the Web GUI functionality and the modern user-based function user interface friendly that we have in Fury. So it combines both of them and provides us a better experience, like a user-friendly experience. So this is a basic definition of that, all the interfaces. But today our main topic is SAP Win GUI. So we'll cover that in depth, and we'll also see like how we can automate them and what are the prerequisites. All those we cover in next slide. So Monica will take care of that. Monica, over to you.
Okay, so today we will learn more about SAP GUI automation. So let's first understand what does SAP Win GUI stands for. So basically, SAP Win GUI is the SAP Windows graphical user interface, which is used to interact with the SAP system on a Windows environment. So in simple words, I can say that it is a desktop application which provides user with a graphical interface to perform operations and tasks within SAP, such as managing your business processes or entering data into SAP or running the reports or executing transactions. So for all these purposes, we use the Windows GUI SAP. So moving forward, okay. So there are basically two prerequisites that we need to perform before starting with our SAP automation, specifically for GUI. So let me explain it to you. So the first prerequisite is the creating connection. So whenever we are trying to, automate a SAP process, we need to first make sure that a connection is created in the SAP. For that, let me just walk you through the steps that needs to be performed while creating a connection. So we'll just open our SAP application. So it will just look like something like this. And this, I'll just go to this tab, new, and select connections. So once that connection window is open, we can see this window is open. So in this, we don't have to do anything. I'll just click on next. And then in the system connection parameters, I have to give all the details like description, which will be the SAP connection name that we want to create. Then we have the application server, instance number, system ID. And in some scenarios, we need SAP router string as well. So we will fill all these details. And once these details are filled in these columns, in this input boxes, this finish button will be enabled. So we'll just click on this finish. And after clicking on the finish, connection will be created for us. Like I have created a connection for S4N, and it looks something like this. So this is how we create a connection. So this is the first prerequisite that we need to perform while before starting the SAP automation in GUI. Now moving forward, okay. So the second prerequisite is enabling the scripting. So UiPath Studio need to interact for interacting with SAP screen. It needs scripting to be enabled, and we have to enable the scripting on the two side. First is the client side, and the second is the server side. So we'll go through them one by one. Let me just start with the how to enable the scripting on the client side. So this is my SAP application logon page. If I just click on this button beside this SAP Logon 770, I'll just see the options. So I'll select that. Inside this, there is an option of accessibility and scripting. I'll just expand it and select the scripting option. So since scripting is already enabled in my system, so this enable scripting checkbox is checked. So let's suppose if the scripting is not enabled, it will look something like this. So what you have to do is simply just check this checkbox and you will see the scripting is enabled and just click on apply. After clicking on apply, this scripting will be enabled on your SAP system on the client side. Okay, and there is another important thing that I would like to cover over here. So in certain business scenarios, what happened is there is a requirement from the business that we use a particular theme in SAP and we want our automation to run on that theme only. So for that, we have to select the theme before starting our automation, because sometimes what happens is that based on the themes, some buttons position get changed and which will be creating, errors while executing the process if we have developed the process in certain theme and running it in other process. So to avoid that, what we do is we select the theme that is needed for our automation beforehand. So for that, I'll just in the visual design, I'll select the theme settings, and this you can see there are multiple themes that are provided by the SAP. So let's suppose if I select this SAP signature theme and click on apply. So that theme will be enabled in my connection and I can use it for the automation. Once this is done, I can just click on OK and the scripting is enabled from the client side. Now moving to the second scripting that needs to be enabled is from the server end. For that, I just have to log into the connection that I have created. So I'll just write my credentials over here. And log into this. So once I have logged in, this is the SAP home screen that it looks something like this. And I have to just enter a transaction code that is RZ11 and click enter. So once this transaction is executed, it will navigate us to this edit profile parameters screen. Over here in this parameter name, I have to write SAP GUI /user underscore scripting and then click on this display button. So once this display button is clicked, it will be navigating to the display profile parameter details screen. And in this, we have to select this change value button. So, okay, here we can see the current value is true because scripting is enabled for me on the server side. But if it is not enabled for you, this current value will be false. And what you have to do is simply just provide true in this new value. So once you provide true, it will enable your scripting on the server side. Okay, and there is a very interesting thing that I would like you to note. So if your organization is using more than one instance of SAP and you want your scripting to be enabled on all the servers, so what you have to do is just click on this, check on this switch on all servers, and it will just enable your scripting on all the servers for that, for all the instances. After clicking on this, just click on save. It will give you a pop-up that changes have been made. Just click on enter. And we will see the scripting is enabled. So a point that needs to be noted down over here is that the scripting is not enabled permanently. So whenever there is a system refresh in the backend or there is a system restart in the backend, the scripting will be disabled for you. So again, you have to go to this RZ11 T code and enable your scripting for the automation to run perfectly fine. Okay, once that is done, you just have to log off your SAP and then again log in for the scripting to be get enabled in your system. I'll just log off. And if you again click on this connection and log in with your login credentials, the scripting will be enabled for you and you're good to go with your starting with your SAP automation. Okay, so once these two prerequisites have been performed, we can start with our automation. So before starting up automation, I'd like to highlight two things. So SAP UiPath does not provide any particular package for this SAP GUI automation. So all the activities that needs to be executed while doing the SAP GUI automation are included in a general package, which is UiPath.GUI So if this package is installed in your system, you will be able to see all the SAP activities that are designated specially for SAP GUI automation provided by UiPath, and all the other activities like type into and everything that is needed for your automation inside the package. So on the right hand side, you can see if in the activities panel, if you search for SAP, there are certain set of SAP activities which are provided by UiPath to make our SAP GUI automation more easier and user friendly. So these are few activities like call transaction, SAP log on, SAP login, read status bar activities. So we'll learn more about these commonly used SAP activities in the next slide. Moving forward. Okay, so the first activity that is being provided by UiPath is the SAP Log On Activity. So this activity is basically used to launch our SAP GUI application. So in this activity, we just have to provide the SAP Log On path and the connection name. The connection name is the one that we have provided in the description while creating our connection. So both these fields will take a value of string type. Now moving to the next activity, we have SAP Login Activity. So once the application is launched in your system, it needs to be logged into the SAP to run our transactions. So we use this SAP Login Activity for that. In this, we have to provide the client number, the one that we are using. So it depends on organization to organization, like on which client we have to do our automation on. Then we have to provide the username, which will also be of string type. Then we have password. So password can be entered in two ways, like it can be of string type and it can also be of secure string type. It is recommended to use the secure string type for the password. Then the other field is language. So it will also be depend on organization to organization, and it will take a value of string type. Then we have the multiple logon option. So here you will get three options. Like for this, I have used the continue with this logon without ending any other sessions. So we can use that. Now, moving to the next activity, this is the call transaction activity. So once you logged into your system and you want to execute a transaction to go to that transaction and perform your task that needs to be performed, right? So for that, we use call transaction activity. And in this, basically, you just have to provide the transaction code to which you have to navigate your bot to. Then the next activity is the read status bar activity. So SAP provide messages at the bottom in the status bar, wherever there is a warning message or there are error message or there are successful messages. So read status bar activity is used to capture those statuses, and we can store those captured messages in a variable by using this activity. Now, the other activity, which is also very commonly used while doing SAP GUI automation, is the click toolbar button. So there are certain scenarios in which you have to click on the toolbar buttons. So for that purpose, we will use this activity. And what we have to do basically is just use this activity and take the selector. So it will take all the buttons that are available in your toolbar. And then in the drop down, you can select the particular button that you need your bot to select. So we use this for that purpose, we use the toolbar button activity. Then the other activity is the select menu item. So let's suppose if there are certain menu items that needs to be selected, like if a particular input field have more than one values from which drop down we have to select the values, right? So for that purpose, we will use the select menu item activity. And for that, this activity also, we just have to select on the button that needs to be clicked on for selecting the values. And in the drop down, you will see all the options that are available for us, and we can select the one that are required for the automation. And it will be displayed in this activity. Okay, moving forward, we have this select dates in calendar activity. So in certain scenarios, like for executing a report or posting something in SAP, we have an input field for the dates, right? For that particular reason, we can use this activity. So what we have to do is just select on the input button for where we have to enter our dates. And you can see in the select, I have selected date selection type dot date. So if I select this dot date, it will just ask me for the date which I have to enter in the SAP. There are two more options that are available. So if you just click on this drop down, you will see two more options. So there is a range. So in certain scenarios, we have to give the start date and the end date. For that, we will select the range option. And then the third one is the year. So for that, we will just period basically. So we just have to enter the year and the months that we need to cover, and we are good to go. And the other thing is that this activity will support all the SAP Fury based system as well, like SAP S4HANA and SAP SuccessFactors. So this activity is also one of the most commonly used, and it is very helpful. Now moving to the next activity, we have the click pictures on screen activity. So we often see like there in SAP, there are certain pictures that we need to select. And while using the normal activities, we see that selectors are not that stable, and the pictures are not getting clicked, right? So for that purpose, we will use this click picture on screen activity, which is simply have to give the selector of the picture that the bot needs to click, and we are good to go. And this in this the feature is that you can either click single time or double according to your requirement. Now the other activity, and this is a very helpful and interesting activity, which is the table cell scope activity. So in SAP, the most of the work is done in table format, right? And we often have to get our values from a certain cell, or we have to input our values in certain cell. So for that purpose, if we are using our normal click or type into activity and giving the selector, it might get fail sometimes, or it is not that dynamic. So we can use this table cell scope activity. It will help us out there. So what we have to do is basically just give the column name and the row number on which we have to perform the execution or the any certain particular task. And then in the do scope, we can give our function that needs to be performed. Like in this example, I have used the type into activity. So what it will do is in the 0th row, under the column number order quantity, it will enter the value as 10. So we are just good to go. And the best part is we don't have to give any selectors in the type into activity as well, because it will automatically take the coordinates from the above. Now, the next activity is the expand tree activity. So there are trees. Inside those trees, there are nodes. And if we want to select a particular node, so while expanding that tree and using the click activity, it might, let us to fail the selectors. So we can use this expand tree. And in this, what we have to do is basically give the parent tree. And in the drop down, we can select the selective nodes that we need to the bot to select. And we are good to go. Now, Deepak will explain you about all the best practices that we need to follow while executing our bot for the SAP GUI automation, and then do the live demo.
Thanks, Monica. So, like before moving to the demo, like we have a demo and we will be trying some things. Uh, Before that, I think everything. Hope everyone got the point, like what Monica was trying to do. And if there is any questions, like do add them in the chat. We will try to answer them in the chat as well. And in the end, we'll have a proper question and answer session as well. So do keep like posting your questions in the chat. So before like moving to the live demo part, we just wanted to show you like how, like which best practice you can use. Like this can be used for a normal UI automation as well. these are not very much different from them, but these are I have specifically added for like SAP automation. So firstly, like the reusable components area. So like we have to like developing reusable components and developing workflows that can be reused can help your code and enhance the efficiency of that code. And they are easy to maintain. Let's just say that I have to log into SAP. So I will just create a login sequence and use that in a workflow. And whenever I have to use, like any other person for my team from my team want to use the login sequence, they don't have to create it again. They can just use that workflow directly and pass their values into that argument. Or if they are coming from asset, they can just which folder we are running the bot in, it will directly pick up that asset and it will run on that machine. So using reusables helps us in a lot of ways. And also, like if we can also make those reusables workflows as libraries, that can be help like organization wide. So let's just say that I made a library which can help in login sequence or in the like getting a certain report in our company's process. So we can directly like any person from the organization who has access to that orchestrator can directly use that library in their code, just pass the arguments which are required to run that scenario, and will be good to go. Then it part comes the dynamic selector. So in SAP or even in the UiPath, in the UI automation, there are selectors which needs to be dynamic. So there are some values which consistently change. Like there are some numbers in the selector. There are some IDs that can change. There is IDX that can change. So we have to remove that and keep the code as dynamic as possible, because sometimes if it fail, we'll have to go back and fix it again. We don't want that. We'll try to make the code as dynamic as possible so that we don't have to go to the code again and again. Then leveraging the SAP built-in activities. So the activities that SAP has built in works greatly with the GUI interface. So let's just say that we have to, like Monica showed, like the calendar. So in that we can just use the calendar activity instead of using type into, because sometimes type into, like SAP interface behaves differently sometimes, because let's just say we have to enter a date. We just wanted to change the year from the back, but that value will not be easily changed because that back value will change. There are some set of limits of that date that we enter. So using a calendar helps and make a lot of sense. And also, like it is built for SAP, so it knows like if we are passing a range into certain format, so it will make and adapt it in a certain format which SAP accepts, so that we can leverage. And then the retry mechanism, like sometime I have noticed in SAP when you are trying to log in, sometimes the scripting is not working or some scenarios, but it works when you retry that thing again. So having a retry mechanism helps a lot, especially in the login sequence. So whenever like your login sequence should be in a retry mechanism. If it fails at a certain point during the login, it should retry again, so that our board don't have to like run from the start again, go to initialization, get all the data, because it can be a complex process. Starting that again becomes like a time consuming process. So we can use a retry mechanism. Then comes the object repository. So object repository is a thing that UiPath has introduced few years back, and it helps a lot in the UI automation. So let's just say that I have a selector, and that particular selector is being used 10 times in a process. So let's just say that click button is being used 10 times in the whole process. So why do I need to have 10 different selectors for that? I can just have one selector added to object repository and use it wherever required. And also, like let's just say in future, that particular selector has changed, so we'll don't have to go to the code and make changes in all those 10 activities. We'll just make change in the object repository. We'll select that particular button, we'll edit the selector. When we save it, all those 10 activity will have the like the fixed selectors. We don't have to go to each one to fix that. So the great feature like object repository working with UI automation. Then maintaining a logging, comprehensive logging. So let's just say that when you are working on UI automation and you are running it on orchestrator in unattended mode, some like let's just say it failed at a certain selector, but you don't know where it failed because you are not you have not logged in properly. So I generally what I do is like I maintain a log after every UI interaction that I'm doing with through the board. So let's just say I'm typing my name. So after I have typed my name, I have just entered a log message like name type. So that way we can keep track of things like at this certain point the log is there. So that means that at this certain point the bot has executed correctly and the next selector has failed. So we have to directly go to that next selector and fix it. Instead of like doing the main debug from the start and doing it till the end and finding like where it is failing, because in debug mode also like sometime it is running, but in unattended mode some things may not work. It's some unattended mode work differently in some environment and the environment issue is there. So that way maintaining a log helps you a lot. So these are the few basic points of best practice that I have used, and I wanted to share with you. So now let's just have a live demo. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. So let's just say that we have a process which is complete order to cache. I'll not just go into in depth for now. We'll run this in the end. But before that, I wanted to show you how we can design a process in UI SAP automation. So let me just make a test sequence and we'll create that. So SAP logon part, I'm not doing right now because for that I have to add my credentials or anything in the board. So I don't want that to happen right now. So I'll just log into the system and we'll see areas where we can automate. Right. So we have logged into our system. So first thing that whenever we are doing SAP automation, if we have to go to a certain area. So in this scenario, like the process I have automated is order to cache. So order to cache is something like, let's just say that I am a vendor and some order has so I have created a order, like I have wanted 10 quantities of a bike, let's just say, for example. Then I have to create an order for that. I will create an order, then the warehouse team will accept that order and they will pick that order, like how many quantities they have currently. They'll check the stock, they'll deliver that to me, then the post good issue will come, then the invoicing part will come. This is a whole order to cash cycle that I have created completely. But now for, let's just say that I'll show you how to create an order. We'll create an order with UiPath. We'll try to automate that process, but we'll first have to call a particular transaction to go to any screen in UiPath. So we'll just use call transaction in this screen, and the call transaction is aware, and we'll pass here VA01. This is a T code that we use to create order. So we'll use that, type that here. And firstly, I'll show you the selector of it. So let me just go here. Here you will notice it has my name in the selector, like the title name has my name in it. But if you want to make your code dynamic so that if it is used, it has been used by any other user ID too, we have to make it as a star. But also, like, let's just say that we want to make this as a reusable component. We want to add the selector to object repository so that whenever we are using call transaction, we can directly use that selector in our code. So the good approach is to completely make that title as star, so that let's just say that currently I'm the home screen and I'm calling a transaction, but in the next step I am on a particular, I have created an order. Now I have to go to another transaction, but I'm not coming to home then going to that transaction. It's a extra one step, so I don't want to do that. So what I will do, I will just call transaction from that particular part where I am, and I'll go to the other transaction for, but on that screen the title will be different. So I don't want that conflict. So in the start I am making the title as star so that it will work on any screen where I'm going. So it is done. Let me just manually go to VA01. We'll run the bot in the end, see how it is doing. Now here we have, like, we have to enter these condition, what kind of order type I am creating. So for simple, and also, like, now we are using modern design experience. So in that we have partial selector. We have to use a attach browser and application. So firstly we'll use that. We'll give it this screen, like this screen we are working on, and you will notice, like, I have a object repository created for this screen. So it won't me to, like, do you want to reuse that or don't reuse. So this is the advantage of having object repository. If any selector that you have already fixed and used, so it will directly come up to you, like, if you have created it, do you want to reuse that? So I will reuse that. But in that I am passing the application path as an argument. So I'll just create an argument here. I'll give the path in this argument later, but let's just proceed to development first. Now we have given into that application, now we have to type. Then we'll use type into. Type into. Now we'll give the selector where we have to type. We have to give the order type here. So we'll select this. We'll see its selector. What are the selectors here? We'll go into the UI Explorer to see. Now the approach that I will recommend you guys is that if you can skip ID, do that. If there is other options that can work without having an ID, do that, because sometimes IDs has inside there like some numbers that will change. So if you have if you want to make that dynamic, that's well and good. But if you can skip ID completely and use other areas and the selector is working, then that's good. Like this scenario, I have removed the ID and used tooltip and type, and now it is validating. So that's fine. We'll use this and click on save. The selector is fine. We'll just confirm. And now after that, we have to click on this enter button. So for this, we can use the SAP activity that we saw, like the click toolbar button. We'll go to click toolbar button, we'll use that activity, we'll click on the element, and we'll take this first row. Like in the toolbar button, we have selected the whole toolbar. And as you'll notice, like all the buttons that were there are coming directly here. So this is a great example of like how we can optimize our code. Like let's just say if I want to click on this button and I have used click will work, definitely work. It will, there's no doubt that click will not work. But let's just say in future on this screen, I have to press on save, or even on this button or on the back button. So for that, I have to keep adding new selectors. But in this activity, I have just used a click toolbar activity, and I can use any value in this. I'll just pass the value inside it and I can use that. So it makes the code more dynamic and we can use that easily. Now let's just enter the order number OR and enter. Now here we have few things. First, we have to give the sold to party material. So firstly, let's just see material. Now we are on a different screen, so we have to use the attach use application browser again. We'll give the screen, the screen we want to work on. We'll reuse it. I have a selector for that. Now let's just say that we have to add sold to party first. So now let's just use type into. We'll click on here. We'll select this selector. We have to type sold to party. And now in this selector, the main part that I wanted to show you, like in SAP GUI, whenever you are automating in the selector, like this ID, it contains some number. As you notice, like 4021 is here, 4701 is here. These number will change. If you are running some other day or some other instance is open, so these number will change. So we have to make them dynamic. So what we will do, the semicolon before this, and the numbers. Firstly, we'll make the number as star, so it can be anything, and the semicolon before that, we make it as a question mark. So that way, it will be a dynamic thing. And whenever if they are even changing, it will be, our code will be working. So there will be no need to change the selectors again. And you see, it is validating it and it is highlighting the right element. So do keep in mind whenever there is any number and like 4-digit number and there is a semicolon before that, make the semicolon as question mark and the numbers as stars. So it will make your code dynamic. And this is also in the if you will go to UiPath documentation of SAP automation, you will find that there, like in UI automation, if there is any scenario like this, we have to do that to make the selectors more dynamic. We'll do that. We'll click on save. Now let's just say that we have given sold to party something. Now we have to type here the material number. And as you'll notice, this is a table. And to enter into table, UiPath has the activity use tables cell scope. So we'll use that. And the main benefit of using this activity is that, let's just say that we don't have this activity and we have to type some value in here. What we would be doing, like we will be giving the selector of this particular cell. Let's just say in future, the material is not here, material moves to here, then our selector will fail. So for that, the best way is to do this. Now we'll indicate the element with this activity, and let's just say I selected this column. But you will notice in the UiPath Studio, it has selected this and it has given me the column name directly. Now it is not going to that by number or any particular selector, it is going to that by material and the row number where you want to type in. So as Monica showed us, like in the starting part as well, like the material number, the column name and the row number where we have to type has directly come here. Now if you want to type any value in between that particular row, we'll just use type into activity, and let's just say I add the material number as TG11. This is our material number. I have added that here. And here I don't have to give any UI element to that because it is directly inside this scope and it will write on this particular screen. So this is a great way. Let's just add some number here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for testing. And now we can try and run this. Let's just run this, debug this. And as you'll notice, like we are currently on this screen in UiPath, but the selector we gave for call transaction was for home screen, but we made it dynamic. So it will work on this screen and come to that T code again. See, it has come here, it is entering the order type. I think we haven't given any values in the order type. We'll have to take that first. Yeah, order type is empty. We'll add the order type here. And now we'll run it again. Let's just go to SAP screen. It has entered the OR. Yeah, now it is clicking on enter. The next screen is open. Sold to party. It will enter that number that we have given in sold to party, and it is selecting that table and passing that particular value that we have given. So you see, like a table, it firstly it identifies the complete table, and then it goes into that particular row that we have passed and the particular column where we want to write the value in. So this is a basic example how we can do a UI automation, like an automation, SAP automation. I have a process readily available. I'll show you what I'm doing, and I'll also show you the reusable parts that I was talking about. So this is an RE framework. I hope most of you are aware of RE framework. So now in the workflow, you'll see like first I'm killing the process if there is any active session running for SAP, and then I have created a workflow for SAP login. This is a workflow. You can keep it as a library as well. And in this, I am doing SAP login. So this is a SAP login workflow. It is inside RE like retry scope, and we can pass all those values. What we are coming, it's directly coming from config or even asset, like the credentials we are taking from asset. This is a reusable. So if any other person want to use this and run it in their code, they can directly take this file and use that in their code. That credentials are directly coming from assets, so there is no need to make any change. It will directly work in their code. Then let's just go to the next part, get transaction. There is nothing much change in that, but in this the by default RE framework has a queue based mechanism, but I have changed it to a data table. So I'm using that. It will pass the data row into the transaction item, and we will process that. Then coming to the main part, which is process transaction. In this, we'll go to the process workflow, and you will notice like there are different workflows that I have created. And let's just say that this is VA01 to create order that we just directly this we did right now in the test sequence. So this is a process, and in this, all the values that I have to enter into that variable, into that like the workflow, are directly coming from the arguments. Let me show you the arguments as well. So you'll see like all things are coming either from config or from the transaction item, the data